Okay, so this is going to be our warm-up for today. So remember, each of these warm-ups came from the upcoming test. They're questions very similar to what you're going to see, so please make sure that you're copying all this down. If you have questions, I'll be here available during WIN, so please come in and ask, or you could ask in class tomorrow. Okay, so starting with number 1 for Monday, it says, if y varies directly with x and y is 10 thirds when x equals 4, which equation describes this relationship? So last week we talked about direct variation. Hopefully you remember that varies directly. It means that it is proportional. It goes through 0, 0. Okay, that's what proportional means. It goes through 0, 0. And it can be written in the form y equals kx, which is very similar to y equals mx, but k is just the constant of variation. So to solve for k in this equation, I would just divide by x on both sides. So we did this last week. So if I have the equation y equals kx, to solve for k, I would just divide by x. These would cancel. So k is the same thing as y divided by x. Very similar to slope, but slope is the change in y divided by change in x. So all we really have to do is we take our y value, which is 10 thirds. So I'm going to take y, right? Y is 10 thirds. So I'm going to put that in the numerator, 10 thirds. And we're going to divide it by our x value. So again, y divided by x would be 4. Okay, and if you know how to do a fraction divided by a whole number, please do that. Otherwise, I'm going to just encourage you to use your calculator. So I would do a new document, add a calculator. So we practiced this on last week on Friday. So we would do control divide to get the fraction bar. And then I need a fraction in my numerator. So I'm going to do control divide again so that I can put 10 thirds all in the numerator. So 10 thirds divided by 4, enter. So 5/6 is my k value. So I'm going to write on my paper that k equals 5/6. So our equation in y equals kx would be y equals 5/6x, which is answer B. So my answer is going to be B. I'm going to show you another way that you could have just checked each of these answers. The problem is that D, not here, would be a little bit tricky. I think a lot of students might select that. So please, if you're not sure, I would definitely not pick not here. Please check these. So I can use my calculator. So I'm going to graph this line, y equals 5/6x, and then I'm going to look for this coordinate right here. The one thing is 10 thirds is going to show up as a decimal. So if you wanted to go ahead and change that to a decimal, that I don't think that's a bad idea. So in my calculator, if I just take 10 divided by 3 and then I put a decimal, it will tell me 10 thirds is 3.3 repeating. So when I graph this, I'm going to do control doc and add a page. I'm going to add a graph. So my answer, we said, was y equals 5/6x. Remember, y and f of x are the same. So I can graph just f of x. Again, that's y equals 5/6. So control divide to get the fraction. 5/6x. Enter. So when I go to x is 4, I should get a y of 10 thirds, which again is 3.3 repeating. So I'm going to trace menu. 5 is trace, 1 graph trace. I'm going to type 4, so it'll go to where x is 4. There it is, at 4, 3.3 repeating. So if you had graphed these other options, when you went to where x is 4, you would not get that same y value. So you should be able to eliminate those. The other option is just to plug 4 in, right? If I plug 4 in for x and simplify, I wouldn't get 10 thirds. So lots of different ways to do this one problem. All right, number 2, what is the equation of the line that passes through the points 0, 5 and 4, -3? Then it also asks what is the y-intercept and the 0. So one really important observation that you make about that first coordinate, this one right here, 0, 5, is when x is 0, that is our y-intercept. So they actually already gave you your y-intercept 0, 5. Remember, your y-intercept is your b value, your beginning. All right, so to find the equation, we need the slope. So I need to know what is m. So we use the formula y2 minus y1 divided by x2 minus x1. So I'm going to draw my fraction bar, put my minus signs. I'm going to label these x1, y1, x2, y2. And then I'm going to plug in my numbers. So my y2 goes first. That's -3 minus my y1 is 5 divided by x2 is 4 minus x1 is 0. So you could do this by hand. So -3 minus 5 would be -8 divided by 4 would be 4. -8 divided by 4 would be -2. Or go to your calculator and let's just practice typing this in. So control divide to get our fraction bar. -3 minus 5 divided by 4 minus 0. 4 minus 0. There we go, -2. So our slope is -2. So if our m is -2 and our b is 5, right, 0, 5, we can write our equation in y equals mx plus b. So our equation is going to be y equals -2x plus 5. All right, and then it wants to know what our 0 is. So remember, our 0 is the same thing as an x-intercept. So we found this last week by graphing. You can do it by hand. I'm just going to encourage you to graph it to check your answer if you want to do it by hand. So if I'm graphing it, I'm graphing y equals, again, f of x is y, same thing, -2x plus 5. So there's our line. I would trace, menu, trace is 5, graph trace is 1. So there's our y-intercept. Remember, if I scroll off of it and come back, that yellow box pops up. So let me do it one more time. There it is. So we said our y-intercept was 0, 5. That's correct. So I'm going to scroll towards my x-intercept or my 0. There it is, 2.5, comma 0. So 2.5, comma 0 is the 0. Or again, the x-intercept, so 2.5, comma 0. All right, so that is the warm-up for today. So put that in the front pocket of your journal, and then tomorrow we'll go over the questions for Tuesday. So I'm going to give you a couple seconds to put that in the front pocket of your journal. All right, so the next thing we're going to look at is the linear equation bullseyes. This is what you're going to be doing in class today. So you have this page that actually has the bullseyes on it, and then you have the next page, which is where you're going to put your answers and your practice. So this paper is what you're turning in. The bullseyes you're actually going to end up putting in your journal on the next page. So you need to make sure you're filling in both. All right, so we're going to start with the first bullseye right here, the slope and y-intercept one. So basically, they gave you the slope right here. So we're going to do number 1 for each of these. They gave you the slope. They told you that m is 1. Then they gave you the y-intercept is b equals -9. So it would be the point 0, -9. And they want slope-intercept form. So remember, slope-intercept form is just y equals mx plus b. And they gave you the m and the b. So all we're doing is writing y equals, our m is 1x minus 9. And that's it. So y equals 1x minus 9. I'm going to fix my y here. So y equals 1x minus 9. Okay. So I'm going to put it there, but I'm also going to put it on my paper. So that way, that paper is what you're turning in. So number 1, our answer was y equals 1x minus 9. So y equals 1x minus 9. All right, so those should be pretty easy for you. Let's go to the second bullseye. So the second bullseye, this is what the second type we did. It has a point and a slope. So they gave you, on number 1, the point -5, -3, and the slope is m equals 2, and we're writing that in slope-intercept form. So I'm going to go to my paper and I'm going to write these two pieces of information down. So my m is 2 and the point is -5, -3. So on my paper, number 1 in the point and slope section, they gave me the point -5, -3, and that my slope or m was 2. Let me just double check on that. I'm going to flip back and forth here. M is 2, -5, -3 is correct. All right, so to write this equation in slope-intercept form, we need two pieces of information. We need our m, which we already have as 2. We also need a b. I don't know what b is. So remember last week we were plugging this into y equals mx plus b. So to solve for b, I have to replace all the other variables. So this is my x, this is my y, and that's my m. So I'm going to replace mx and y with those values. So my my y is -3 equals m is 2 times x is -5 plus b. So now that I've replaced all those variables, all I have to do is solve this equation for b. So first I'm going to do 2 times -5 is going to be -10. I bring everything else down, so -3 equals -10 plus b. Now it's just a one-step equation. To get b by itself, you're going to add 10 to get it to the other side, so add 10 to the other side. These are a 0 pair, so they cancel out, so we're left with b equals -3 plus 10 would be 7. So our b is 7. So our equation is y equals m is 2x plus 7. So our equation, y equals 2x plus 7. So I'm going to go back up to my little bullseye. I'm going to write that in there also. So y equals 2x plus 7 on that second bullseye on number 1. So y equals 2x plus 7. All right, and then I'm going to check this with my calculator. If this is my equation, then this equation should go through this point right here that they gave me, -5, -3. So I'm just going to very quickly type in my calculator. So control doc to add a page, add graph. F of x is y, that's the same thing, 2x plus 7. Enter. There's the line. It has a slope of 2. That's from my equation. I already knew that. I'm looking for this point, -5, -3. So menu, trace, graph trace. Menu 5, 1. I'm going to go to -5. At -5, it should be -3. There it is, -5, -3. So this equation, in fact, does have this slope, and it goes through that point. So that's how we know we're correct. All right, so then the last set of bullseyes are where you have 2 points. So one thing I want to point out is that they told you that -4 was x1, y1, and they told you that 8, 5 was x2, y2. If you wanted to switch those, you could. I would just keep them like that, so that way you don't get confused. But if you want to call this x2 and y2, that's fine. This could also be x1 and y1. It doesn't really matter. Okay, so we're going to write our 2 coordinates down. So -4, -4, and 8, 5. So I'm going to go on my paper to the 2-point section. We're going to write our 2 points. So -4, -4, and 8, 5. And I'm going to label them how they had them. So they had x1, y1, x2, y2. So to write an equation, I need m and I need b. And I don't have either of those this time. So the first step is going to be to find the slope. So again, to find the slope, we do the y2 minus y1 divided by x2 minus x1. So not y, but m equals, draw your fraction bar, put your minus signs, and then we're plugging in our numbers. So y2 is 5 minus y1 is -4. Make sure you put that negative with it. Divided by x2 is 8 minus x1 is -4. And then we're going to simplify that. So I'm going to use my calculator to do that. So I'm going to do control, add a page, add a calculator. So I'm typing in all of this. 5 minus -4. So I'm going to do control divide. 5 minus -4. On the denominator, I have 8 minus -4. Let me just confirm that that's correct. So 5 minus -4, 8 minus -4. Okay. Enter. So our slope is 3/4. So our m is 3/4. So 3/4. Right? So now that we have an m, we need to plug it in. So we're going to plug in this m and one of these coordinates. And so I told you on Friday you could pick either coordinate. In this case, one of them I personally think is definitely easier than the other. These are both negative, so I don't think that that's easier. These are both positive, so I think this is easier. If you did choose this one, at least both your x and y are the same number, so that might to you seem easier. But I would pick the one that are both positive, so I would choose 8, 5. So this is going to be the x and the y that I choose to plug in to y equals mx plus b so that we can solve for b. We're also plugging in 3/4 for our slope. So our equation, our y is going to be 5 equals m is 3/4 times our x from our coordinate is 8 plus b. And now all we're doing is solving. So we're going to do 3/4 times 8. So if you don't know that, definitely use your calculator. So if you're multiplying a fraction, you just multiply straight across if you want to try it without a calculator. So you would actually do 3 times 8 divided by 4. 3 times 8 is 24. 24 divided by 4 is 6. There's our answer. So 6. So 5 equals 6 plus b. Last step, get your 6 to the other side so you can get b by itself. So we would subtract 6, subtract 6. So b is going to equal -1. So b is -1. So our equation is going to be y equals 3/4 x minus 1. 3/4 x minus 1. So last thing I would do is just check this. So I would add a page, add a graph. We're graphing 3/4 x minus 1. And we want to confirm that it goes through these 2 points, -4, -4, and 8, 5. If it doesn't go through both of those, then we did something wrong. So menu, trace, graph trace, menu 5, 1. I'm going to go to -4. There it is, -4, -4. Then I'm going to go to 8. There it is, 8, 5. So I'm going to go back up to my bullseye. I'm going to write this equation because now we know it's right. Y equals 3/4 x minus 1. So on that last bullseye, number 1 would be y equals 3/4 x minus 1. And our slope then is our m, which is 3/4. All right, so this is what you're working on. Again, the bullseyes is what you're going to put on the next page in your journal. I believe it's 41, I think. And then the paper you're actually going to turn in. Please make sure you show all of your work. If you do not show your work, you will not receive credit. If you finish early, please make sure that you've checked all your answers with your calculator. There should be no reason to get a wrong answer if you are using your calculator to check it.